Hi, my name is Franta. I am the host of the event today, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm a content creator, author, and activist, among many things. But I am, again, pleased to serve as the host of the UNA USA International Human Rights Day event. I'm a champion of human rights, and in many forms, I want to lend my voice to this important program. Right now, it may seem pretty difficult to celebrate human rights, given the atrocities that have happened to those kidnapped by Hamas, to the ongoing and unthinkable devastation that's happening in Gaza, the ongoing war in Ukraine, the stigmatization and repression of LGBTQIA plus rights in Uganda, and the stripping of women's rights in Afghanistan. But I think it's very important to recognize the achievements and to gauge a path forward. The UN is the path forward, as it is the best solution for supporting and protecting and championing human rights in all member states. The 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is an important milestone that we must celebrate, as it is the living, breathing document that has guided big decisions and people for the past 75 years. UNA USA chose to recognize International Human Rights Day with this very special event that focuses on equality, freedom, and justice for all. UNA USA is dedicated to supporting human rights through its programs, communications, and advocacy actions, and in fact has a very active human rights affinity group that supports human rights initiatives all year round. The event today is broken up into two parts that will achieve UNA USA's mission to educate, inspire, and mobilize. The first part is to educate and inspire by hearing from human rights practitioners, policymakers, and UNA USA youth. The second part of the event will feature workshops facilitated by partners UNICEF USA, Global Citizen, Shot at Life, United to Beat Malaria, and the UNA USA Human Rights Affinity Group. Those breakout sessions will provide hands-on opportunities and actionable steps to mobilize participants as human rights activists. During today's program, UNA USA will also unveil the newly drafted UNA USA American Youth Declaration for Human Rights, which is very exciting. It's considered a glow-up of sorts, an updated version of the original, but just for young people. It's very exciting. This event means a lot to me because for me, I'm a gay man living in America. And although I would say I'm showered in privilege, I do think that sort of allows me a grace by awareness that is important for human rights for all. I have a vast platform which allows me to connect with human beings of all different backgrounds across the world. My personal vulnerability online has shaped a space where people are able to confide in me, their struggles, their injustices, wherever they are, whatever they face, whether it's gender equality, clean water and sanitation, peace, justice, and strong institutions, climate action, just to name a few. These are the battles fought day in and day out, everywhere, all the time. It's why I stand for LGBTQIA plus liberation, call for an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian aid for the people of Gaza, demand government action on climate change. And I really do think it's the honor of my life to utilize my voice and to galvanize communities through events such as the UN International Human Rights Day to help alleviate the suffering and solitude as much as I possibly can. But enough about me. Now I'd like to introduce remarks by Ambassador Michèle Taylor. Ambassador Taylor was sworn in as a U.S. permanent representative to the United Nations Rights Council on February 22nd, 2022. She is a lifelong human rights activist and advocate with a determined commitment to service. As a daughter and granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, Ambassador Taylor brings to the Human Rights Council a profound appreciation for the crucial role the Council can and must play in promoting universal human rights and protecting human rights defenders. We will now hear a recorded message from Ambassador Taylor.
Esteemed colleagues, dedicated advocates for human rights, As I gather with you virtually from Geneva to observe the International Human Rights Day, I find myself not only reflecting on the past, but also looking forward with increased resolve. The 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR, stands as an enduring testament to global shared values and to the enduring spirit of our common humanity. The UDHR, conceived in the aftermath of the Second World War, was a revolutionary act of hope. It was born from the collective determination that the unprecedented horrors of the Holocaust and the devastating effects of the global conflict must not be allowed to recur. It represents the aspiration of a world that respects the dignity and worth of every person, and the understanding that our very humanity depends on realizing that vision. In my role as the U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Human Rights Council, I carry with me the stories and the lessons of history, the experiences of my mother and grandparents, Holocaust survivors, and the tragedy of the many of my family members murdered by the Nazis are a constant reminder of the fragility of peace and the imperative of vigilance. My family's legacy is a guiding light in my life. Because I understand so innately that all forms of hate are a potential harbinger of atrocity, my work is devoted to the protection and promotion of human rights for everyone. The United States has been a steadfast defender of human rights at the United Nations Human Rights Council. Our re-engagement has been characterized by humility and a deep sense of responsibility. We have stood strong against violations and abuses in countries such as Iran, Afghanistan, Russia, Syria, Venezuela, North Korea, Myanmar, China, South Sudan, and many others. We have led efforts to address the plight of refugees and other displaced people around the world, and have been at the forefront of advocating for the protection of vulnerable communities, including women and girls and all their diversity, LGBTQI+ individuals, persons with disabilities, and ethnic and religious minorities. However, the path of human rights advocacy is not without its challenges. We face resistance from governments and other actors who seek to undermine international human rights law and the very notion that the human rights guaranteed to individuals must be protected. It is our duty to build coalitions, to engage in dialogue, and to work collaboratively to advance human rights across the globe. I arrived as the U.S. Ambassador to the Human Rights Council on the very day of Russia's further invasion of Ukraine, and just as we were rejoining the Council for a 3-year term. I am proud of what the United States has achieved on the Council, and I'm incredibly grateful for the dedication of my team. Together, we have brought international attention to global human rights situations, created critical fact-finding missions to document abuses and violations, and established special rapporteurs to report on grave human rights situations around the world while serving as independent expert voices that advise states on thematic human rights issues. We also understand the importance of self-reflection and are committed to addressing our own challenges as a nation. We lead by example, inviting international scrutiny into our efforts to protect human rights at home. This past year alone, we welcomed visits from 3 UN Special Rapporteurs to the United States. We have opened our doors to the world, even when it was uncomfortable, demonstrating our commitment to transparency and accountability. Our re-engagement with the UN human rights apparatus has paid off. We have actively shaped the world's engagement on human rights and have refused to cede this arena to those with agendas antithetical to our understanding of human rights. Our presence has allowed us to respond swiftly to dynamic situations, such as in Sudan, where we played a leading role in creating a fact-finding mission to collect evidence of human rights violations for future accountability. The war in Ukraine has underscored the critical role of the Human Rights Council. It has brought a renewed focus on active conflict zones and the associated effects on human rights. The swift action of the HRC on Ukraine has demonstrated its relevance and effectiveness in addressing Russia's human rights abuses in real time. As we look toward the future, we continue to advocate for reforms within the Human Rights Council that enhance transparency, fairness, and accountability. We believe that council membership should reflect a commitment to human rights and not serve as a shield against scrutiny. In closing, it is my sincere hope that the 75th anniversary will inspire us to recommit to the ideals of the UDHR. Let's use this moment to rekindle the flame of human rights, ensuring that it burns ever brighter in the face of adversity. As Eleanor Roosevelt, the first person to hold my position and whose leadership, vision, and dedication led to the collaboration that resulted in the UDHR, so eloquently stated, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Thank you, all of you, for your dedication to the cause of human rights. Together, we can and must ensure that the legacy of the UDHR continues to inspire and to guide us in the pursuit of a more just and human world where human dignity, equality, and justice are a reality for everyone.
Thank you, Ambassador Taylor, for your service and
Esteemed colleagues,
Thank you, Ambassador Taylor, for your service and for representing the interests of the United States and for supporting human rights around the world. And now I would like to introduce our next speaker to represent the UN perspective on this International Human Rights Day. Ann Patel currently serves as the Washington, D.C. liaison for the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, known as OHCHR. Before working for OHCHR, she was with the Frontline Defenders, and prior to that served as the executive director of Onward Bound Center for Peace Building. Ms. Patel served as the Rotary International representative to the UN Women, and prior to that, she was the deputy director for the International Policymakers Program at the International Center for Transitional Justice. Suffice to say, Ms. Patel has worked to ensure and defend and recognize human rights for many years and in many capacities. Ms. Patel, the floor is yours to share more about the 75th anniversary of the UDHR and the work that you've done for OHCR.
Thank you so much, Connor, and thank you to all for inviting me to be part of the UNA USA commemoration of the 75th anniversary. I'd like to start us out with a video from my office, my home office in Geneva.
"75 years ago, something remarkable happened on the global stage. The world united to adopt the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This powerful moment emerged from a turbulent era filled with wars, genocide, nuclear threats, and economic instability. Despite these challenges, nations came together to make a solemn promise to protect and advance the rights of every individual. In 1993, as the Cold War thawed and the Internet expanded rapidly, the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action played a crucial role in reinforcing human rights principles. Both the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Vienna Declaration have been beacons of inspiration, igniting meaningful change worldwide. Human rights have become integral to governance and decision-making. Movements like Black Lives Matter, Me Too, Fridays for Future, indigenous activism, and women's protests have empowered individuals to stand up for their rights and challenge injustice. Young people especially have embraced the language of human rights to voice their concerns, and some countries' courts have held wrongdoers accountable, even recognizing the right to a healthy environment. The idea of a human rights-based economy is gaining traction, offering a way to tackle global inequalities and aligning with the Sustainable Development Goals. Yet, human rights violations persist in many parts of the world, often without consequences. Challenges like climate change, conflict, hate speech, the shrinking space for civic engagement, and the governance of new technologies require solutions rooted in human rights principles. By embracing the universal language of human rights, a language that promises freedom, equality, and justice for all, we can overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. Together, we have the potential to create a more peaceful and sustainable future for our planet and its people. As we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, let's remember that it's not just a historical document, but a living testament to our shared humanity, a timeless guide. Despite conflicts that may divide us, it's in the pursuit of peace, justice, and equality that we discover our common ground. Together, we can envision a future where every individual's rights are safeguarded, conflicts are resolved through dialogue, and peace prevails. Now, more than ever, it's time for human rights. Join us as part of Human Rights 75 to help ensure that every person can live in peace and dignity.
Hello. So as Connor told you all, my name is Anna Patel, and I'm working in a new role for the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, a role based in Washington, D.C., and focused on raising the profile of UN human rights work, as well as seeking new partnerships and support. I appreciate all the work that the United Nations Association continues to do to raise awareness and build support for the entire UN system. This job represents a lifelong dream of mine to work for the United Nations. As a proud alum of 4-H, the U.S. Peace Corps, and the Rotary International Peace Fellowships, I believe in service to one's country, I believe in human rights, and I believe in the critical need for a multilateral system. I know that if you all are here taking time out of your lives to listen to and watch this event, you are also believers. And in a moment that feels very dark for humanity, we must hold on to that belief more strongly than ever before. The preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states, recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. The UDHR distills lessons from genocide, atomic destruction, 2 global conflicts, the profound economic devastation of the 1930s, and generations of colonial exploitation and oppression. It was conceived as a map of practical solutions because we know that equality, dignity, freedom, justice, participation in decisions, and the full range of civil and political rights, economic, social, and cultural rights, together with the right to development and the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment, build societies that are more peaceful because they can resolve disputes, more sustainable because they are fair and inclusive, and more resilient to shock because there is an inherent sense of community based on trust. When the first Secretary General of the United Nations laid the cornerstone of the New York building that was to house the United Nations, it contained a copy of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Think of that. Human rights are literally the cornerstone of the United Nations. And since then, states have established an ecosystem of international human rights bodies to assist them to advance this work. Among them, the 10 treaty bodies, the Human Rights Council with its universal periodic review, investigations, special procedures experts, and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights has inspired remarkable progress and laid the foundation for the current international human rights legal and institutional framework. It has brought new life to activist movements for workers' rights, movements to end many forms of discrimination. It has helped to shape the constitutions of many countries across all regions. It has helped to build rule of law institutions that are impartial, transparent, and accessible, and guide huge progress in education, healthcare, and social protection. And it continues to evolve as we do. It is a living set of laws that we humans breathe life into. The work of human rights is not easy. There is no country that gets it right all the time, and no country is entirely comfortable with critiques. But I believe that it is a sign of strength when a country can engage in serious dialogue about its own human rights challenges. It is the beginning of reaching just and equitable future for its citizens, and it is a model of global leadership. Today, my colleagues in Geneva are preparing for a week of high-level events with presidents, celebrities, and human rights defenders from around the world convening to mark a crucial juncture, this 75-year anniversary. While there was a moment when such an occasion might have been described as a celebration, even in the video that we saw earlier, my boss, Volker Turk, described it as a celebration. It is not now. Today, we mark this day against the backdrop of flaring violent conflicts playing out 24/7 in our lives and on our screens, the Sustainable Development Agenda dangerously off track, and environmental harm threatening humanity, and over 100 of our UN colleagues from UNRWA killed in Gaza. 2 months after the horrific October 7th attacks on Israel by Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups, in which civilians were directly targeted and hostages taken, civilians in Gaza continue to be relentlessly bombarded by Israel and collectively punished, suffering death, siege, destruction, and deprivation of the most essential human needs, such as food, water, life-saving medical supplies, and other essentials on a massive scale. Palestinians in Gaza are living in utter, deepening horror. Military operations, including bombardment by Israeli forces, continue in North, Middle, and South Gaza, affecting people who have already been displaced multiple times, forced to flee in search of safety. But no place is safe. As we speak, some 1.9 million out of the 2.2 million Palestinians have been displaced and are being pushed into ever-diminishing and extremely overcrowded places in southern Gaza in unsanitary and unhealthy conditions. And humanitarian aid is again virtually cut off as fears of widespread disease and hunger spread. My humanitarian colleagues have described the situation as apocalyptic. The human rights crisis in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, is also extremely alarming. And as more information emerges on serious allegations of sexual violence perpetrated by members of armed Palestinian groups, including Hamas, during their attacks on Israel on the 7th and 8th of October, it is painfully clear that these attacks need to be fully investigated to ensure justice for the victims. As an immediate step, the High Commissioner for Human Rights has called for an urgent cessation of hostilities and a release of all hostages. Earlier this week, the Secretary General invoked Article 99 of the UN Charter, citing a severe risk of collapse of the humanitarian system in Gaza. It is only the second time in the history of the United Nations that this tool that allows the Secretary General to bring to the attention of the Security Council a matter which threatens international peace and security has been invoked. The international community needs to insist with one voice on a ceasefire immediately on human rights and humanitarian grounds. Unfortunately, the suffering of victims of human rights violations does not stop in the Middle East. In Myanmar, the human rights crisis caused by the military continues to inflict an unbearable toll on civilians. In Sudan, the conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the Rapid Support Forces rages, with significant risk of a protracted civil war and fragmentation of the country. More than 7,000 civilians, including women and children, have been killed since April 2023, and 6.3 million people displaced. In Ukraine, more than 10,000 civilians have now been verified killed since the Russian invasion into Ukrainian territory on February 24, 2022. The actual death toll may be significantly higher. Ukrainians living in territory occupied by the Russian Federation encounter appalling restrictions on their fundamental rights and freedom. This protracted, destructive war must be brought to an end. Unconstitutional changes in government, including military coup in Burkina Faso, Chad, Guinea, Mali, and Niger, have significantly weakened human rights protections and the rule of law in these countries. It is vital that transitional authorities commit and adhere to timelines toward a return to democratic rule and take effective steps to protect human rights in the process. UN Human Rights is also following with growing concern the political crises in Guatemala, Peru, and Nicaragua. and their impact on human rights. In Guatemala, there is particular alarm at continued and systemic attempts by the Attorney General's office to undermine the outcome of the general elections held in June and August. Speaking of elections, in the coming year, elections are scheduled to take place in more than 70 countries, covering half the world's population. In the pre-electoral period, it is particularly important to ensure that the rights to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, association, and political participation are fully respected. We know that pre-electoral periods are often fertile grounds for extremism, stoking of fears, and hate-filled rhetoric. We urge political and other leaders to refrain from sowing fear in the other, from creating divisions and instrumentalizing differences to win votes. These elections will be among the first in the era of widely available generative artificial intelligence. There are obvious risks of unusually powerful propaganda and disinformation being produced at a scale by a growing assortment of actors. It will be more important than ever to ensure that states and technology companies can respond to online harmful content in a way that upholds our rights to information, our right to debate openly and freely, and which also uses human rights as a guide to address harmful speech which discriminates and incites violence. Also unacceptable is the vilification of human rights defenders, including civil society actors, UN independent experts, UN officials, and others who speak out about rights violations. These are the leaders who speak up nonviolently for the realization of rights for themselves, their families, and their communities. And they are targeted for violence and killing. Over 400 were killed in 2022. We must engage in the substance of allegations rather than unjustly attempting to discredit the messenger. Finally, in COP28, UN Human Rights is joining others to press for more action to address climate crisis and secure the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. After this litany of human rights crises, I understand if we all ask ourselves, have human rights failed? Is this 75th anniversary an anniversary of failure? The answer is no. Human rights have not failed. As the High Commissioner has stated many times, it is the cynical disregard for human rights and the failure to respect and heed warnings on human rights that has got us here. The conflicts and crises stalking us today should be a wake-up calls for the international community and for each of us as citizens. A wake-up call that when human rights are violated or sidelined, conflicts erupt. A wake-up call that failure to respect human rights results in instability, suffering, more inequalities, and economic crises. A wake-up call that when human rights defenders and the UN Human Rights Office ring alarm bells, we must listen and we must act to prevent violations. Human rights must be at the center of governance, not just in beautiful speeches by high-level officials. They must be in policies and in laws and guide how these laws and policies are implemented. They must be the common thread running through all aspects of governance, economy, and society. And it starts with us, you and me, who as believers, citizens, and members of the human family, we must take up on the radical act of upholding and centering human rights as a map toward the world that we want.
In the darkest of times, brave men and women stood up. When oppressed, they rose. Together, they fought for greater justice, respect, and compassion. They had a dream for a better future. Today, we are at a turning point. Stakes are high. Climate change, inequality, hate speech. We may feel overwhelmed, but there is hope. You, we, together can create the change we want. By speaking out, by standing up, by taking action. Be the leader you are looking for. Stand up for human rights.
Thank you, Ms.
so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Patel, for your insights into human rights both today and tomorrow. Now, I am thrilled to turn over this part of the program to a very exciting project that is being launched today, the Declaration of Human Rights by American Youth. Young people play a major role in helping to create a better world. They are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but they are also the leaders of today. I'm happy to introduce Ray McCabe, Senior Associate for Youth Engagement at UNA USA, who will share more about this initiative and ways that you too can get involved.
Thank you, Connor. It's my absolute pleasure to introduce the Declaration of Human Rights by American Youth. This project has been a culmination of efforts over the last year from so many different people. 2 of our youth observers, advisors, the drafting committee, subject matter experts, and of course, all of our youth members who contributed. This declaration is a youth-led proclamation of human rights, and I'm so excited to present it today, alongside some of our youth leaders who also played a major role in bringing this project to life. Next slide. So before we dive into details about the declaration, I just briefly wanted to give a high-level overview of some of the main highlights. We hosted 10 virtual development sessions spanning across a myriad of different topics. And at these development sessions, youth were able to share their feedback and their work and their insights to help inform this declaration. Over the course of this process, over 500 youth expressed interest in engaging in these different development sessions, as well as filling out surveys and offering their feedback. The drafting committee was comprised of 15 youth leaders from our own community. And then, of course, we had 40 experts from different youth orgs, grassroots organizations, and the UN. And these experts also included youth members who had their own organizations and their own projects on human rights. Next slide. So as you can see here, we really tried to cover as many topics as possible as we were putting this declaration together. I won't take time to read through this fully, but there will be a link in the chat with more information about the Youth Declaration if you want to take time later to read through some of these different thematic areas. Next slide. And as you can see, those different topics are continued here. Next slide. So now I'm very, very excited to turn over the floor to Imogen Nagareti, our 11th UNA USA Youth Observer to the UN, and Ose Ehineda, our current UNA USA Youth Observer to the UN. So Imogen and Ose, I will now turn over the floor to both of you.
Ray, thank you so much for the introduction and also for all of the wonderful things that you've been doing to help get this initiative off the ground. Himija will be hopping on momentarily, but until then, I wanted to thank everyone for being on the call and just talk a little bit about the importance of this initiative. As young people, we are natural catalysts for change because our energy and passion and innovative thinking can break down the barriers that perpetuate human rights violations. By standing up for what's right and challenging the status quo, especially when those actions aren't easy or popular, we become ardent leaders and human rights defenders, driving social progress and dismantling the structures that breed inequality. As young leaders, it's our duty to foster environments that celebrate differences and create space for dialogue and understanding. This is something that my predecessor, Himija, and UNA USA saw very, very clearly. And so when we're coming up on the 75th anniversary of the UN Declaration for Human Rights, it seemed only a natural cause for us to write our own American Youth Declaration. Both of us are so excited at the work that our drafting committee has been able to do in the past couple of months. But in addition to that, all of the youth leaders who've been able to hop on to development sessions over the course of the past year. It's been super exciting for both Himija during her term and me during my term to talk with young people about their own passion projects and areas of expertise, but also to see so many more young folks hopping on calls because they wanted to learn. The biggest takeaway that I had from our development sessions is for every young person that came on ready to share and ready to provide their own voice and make sure that it was represented in the documents that become our American Youth Declaration, there was an additional young person on the call who said, hey, I'm here on this call not because this is my area of expertise, but because I want to learn more and I want to understand what my siblings and my comrades and my friends are going through and how I can become a better ardent supporter of their human rights, even before we're able to write something like the Human Rights Declaration. I'd love to pass to Himija to talk a little bit about her perception of the development sessions that she was able to host during her tenure as youth observer. However, I'm not sure if she was able to hop on. We've been having a couple technical difficulties, so I will give it a minute.
Unfortunately, she's not able to join right now, OC.
That's all right. Thank you so much for letting me know. In that case, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of this document, because by championing human rights, we set an example, an inspiring example for not only us, but the generations that follow. Our commitment becomes a legacy, encouraging future leaders to continue the fight for justice, equality, and human dignity. Our American Youth Declaration is not just a statement, but a living testament to the collective responsibility to shape a world where human rights are not merely observed, but fiercely protected. So I'm so excited to pass it over to Ray to introduce some of the drafters from our committee to talk a little bit more about the writing of this document and how you can continue to support the information that's in it.
Thank you so much, Ose, and thank you for your leadership and your vision and your dedication to continuing to uplift youth voices and not only through this project, but through your current work as the current youth observer. From my end, I still see Himija and Ose up, and now is a great time to give them kudos and thank them for their work in the chat. And now we'll be moving on to introducing the drafting committee. So the drafting committee is made up of 15 youth leaders from the UNICEF community, and they are extremely dedicated to human rights advocacy. So during the process of creating this declaration, their role was really to review all the feedback and recommendations that we received from youth, and then write the final document that we are presenting here today. So together, they worked in 4 different groups across some of the different thematic areas that we outlined earlier. And as you can see here, all of their names are listed. So please join me in thanking them for all their hard work working on this declaration. Next slide. So now the moment that we have all been waiting for is here. And I'm so proud to present to all of you the final declaration of human rights by American youth. So as you can see on the screen, there is a QR code as well as a bit.ly link, and the link will also be dropped in the chat. So I invite all of you to take the time to read through these different articles and read through some of the different, thematic areas that we discussed and kind of outlined earlier on this call. And in the meantime, we will be actually hearing from a few members of the drafting committee, and they will actually walk us through the different topics that they worked on in their various groups, as well as summarize some of the articles that are listed in the declaration. So first up, we'll be hearing from Riley Reed, who is representing Group 1 of the drafting committee. So Riley, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, guys. Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. But my name is Riley Reed. I am very active and involved LGBTQ+ activist and serve a variety of different committees really promoting this issue, and joined by Avia Weber, who's a awesome sophomore at the University of Pennsylvania. We together wrote for Group 1, which is covering the issue areas of gender equality, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and freedom of expression. And you can find those articles 1, 2, 3, 11, 12, 23, and 24. And I have a little bit of a statement to read about what we came up with. So specifically, we believe in this document because amplifying the voices of young people on critical issues affecting them both in the U.S. and globally needs immediate action. To truly empower young people to take action for a better tomorrow, it's essential for such documents to be created by and for young people themselves. In the first articles we wrote to show our demand and commitment to creating environments that celebrate diversity, ensuring accessibility, we additionally focused on gender equality and freedom of expression. Equality demands a level playing field where everyone is also being given the resources they need. Our writing reinforces that we commit to dismantling systemic barriers, ensuring that opportunities and resources are accessible to all, irrespective of various identities. Individuals should feel empowered to share their unique identities and stories, showcasing the diversity of future generations. One of the most remarkable qualities of young people today is their unwavering commitment to self-expression and support for marginalized groups, demanding a seat at the table for those previously excluded. Building a truly inclusive future demands recognizing the long-standing exclusion of the LGBTQ+ community, a community I'm very proudly a part of. So we must actively champion the human rights of all individuals, including those with diverse and marginalized communities. Specifically, promoting gender equality requires addressing the interconnectedness of LGBTQ+ rights. Realizing that achieving equality is not a linear process and may take time, so it is each country's responsibility to support one another, acknowledging each country comes from a variety of historical and cultural contexts. We need to ensure reasonable expectations and collectively advance. We want to show our dedication to people's inclusive language and ensure that the pursuit of equality does not ignore people's fundamental basic needs and rights in the writing of our books. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Riley. And next up, we'll be hearing from Jonathan Lamb, representing Group 2 of the Drafting Committee. So Jonathan, the floor is yours.
All right. Hi. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan Lamb. I'm from Queens, New York City, and I'm currently a freshman at Cornell University. I'm passionate about advocating for migrant rights and housing justice, and I had the privilege to work alongside other members of Group 2, which included Saheb, Kathleen, and Gabriel on drafting human rights recommendations. We worked and drafted on clauses 10, 20, 21, and 22, including recommendations surrounding protecting migrants' rights, displaced individuals, combating climate crisis, and expanding housing accessibility, improving access to reproductive rights, services, resources, and education. With the current influx in the migrant crisis occurring in cities across the United States, to the global climate crisis that we're seeing, we're hoping that our recommendations will help shape future policies within the United States and globally as we build a framework that will help amplify youth voices and protect our communities. Youth have a place at the table when it comes to shaping future policies and advancing human rights. It is so important that we are considering youth perspectives specifically on these issues because we are the future and that we are witnessing the communities around us directly impacted by these systemic challenges. It is so important that we have a youth declaration of human rights. Since 75 years ago, a lot has changed with our planet, climate, massive displacement leading to migrant crisis, the importance surrounding reproductive health access, and sex education in school. And with the current problems that we are seeing with housing, youth are directly impacted by all these issues. So by having this, we hope that we are collaborating in the future with stakeholders, other activists, other youth activists around the world and build towards a more progressive society. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jonathan. And up next, we'll be hearing from Sean Schrader, representing Group 3 of the Drafting Committee. Sean, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here. This is very exciting and inspiring. I'm Sean Schrader. I'm currently wrapping up my master's degree in business administration at the University of South Florida. Was really fortunate to be a part of Group 3, where I was able to work with Anushka Tadikonda, who is a student at Saratoga High School in Los Gatos, California. And we were really excited to be working within 3 focus areas of education, civic engagement, and the right to work. And we really found that, these are core ideas, core beliefs. I think that so many have that these things should be easily accessible to all. And what was really exciting throughout this review process was being able to explore what the first process looked like and how we could strengthen these things now, especially in this idea of being able to level the playing field and ensuring that everyone has opportunities available to them where they can align their passions with opportunities to make impact, and understanding that opportunities can come in a lot of different ways, but opportunities must be available, which come through things like having equal employment, equal access to education, and equal access to civic engagement. And I think that one of the big focus areas for us, as it was mentioned earlier, thinking about up and coming challenges, that we must be focused on in drafting these documents. Some really big things we thought about here is how do we ensure that credible information is available to youth when they are pursuing education so that they are getting the correct information? How do we ensure that working conditions are fair and that youth have the opportunities to ensure they're able to freely advocate for working conditions, in their own work experiences? And then within this idea of civic engagement, ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to have free and fair expressions of their voice so that their perspective can be heard. And I think that all of these things are so important. It really matters that we focus on these things. As it's been said already, youth today will help shape the future of tomorrow. And although the challenges we face right now are incredibly significant, I've always been a big believer, and I know members of my group have been as well, that when we take small steps collectively, we can and we will make significant positive change with time. And that's really the lasting impact we hope to make from our group.
Thank you so much, Sean. And lastly, we'll be hearing from Fiona Curley, representing Group 4 of the Drafting Committee. Fiona, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ray, and hi, everyone. My name is Fiona Elizabeth Curley, and I represent Group 4. My group, who includes Isabella Malkovich, Autumn Simmons, and Nicholas Wu, co-drafted the articles that discuss the topics of due process, peace and security, and innovation and technology. In 2023, there are some new problems that we had to tackle in this declaration, which were not included in the UDHR, and one of those issues is digital security. Today, we realized that every person has the fundamental right to digital security and privacy and control over their own digital identity and personal data. Every individual is entitled to unrestricted access to digital information and should be protected from state-imposed digital censorship. Other articles we worked on include historical concepts that are still significant today, and we realized that everyone is to be recognized as a person before the law and is entitled to equal protections. All are entitled to a fair and public hearing and are to be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and every person has the right to be free from arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile, including based on discriminatory grounds, and individuals have the right to challenge the lawfulness of their arrests or detention. We also understand that everyone is entitled to protection from all physical, psychological abuse, neglect, or exploitation, and everyone has the right to live in peaceful, non-conflict zones, free from violence and armed conflicts, and no one should be forced to leave their home or persecuted due to conflicts or acts of aggression. And now more than ever, participation must be seen as an essential human right for all people to exercise. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of their country and to be heard by their government. And everyone has the right to participate in their culture and to celebrate their culture without interference. And all people have the right to engage and share in the benefits of scientific advancement and its applications necessary to live a dignified life. Now, finally, at the end of this, I wanted to include something from our group's articles that I personally find very important and is the reason why I wanted to participate in the drafting of these articles. We realize that the state is responsible for preventing, investigating, and prosecuting acts of mistreatment to ensure fair justice for all. And for cases of violence against people, the state is responsible in providing support to victims and promoting a culture of nonviolence and inclusivity through awareness and education. As a 17-year-old, as well as a domestic violence and family court survivor, I know how the rights of children and young people can go unseen and unheard, especially by the state. But with this declaration that I'm so proud to have worked on, I truly believe that this will become a tool that is used to uplift the rights of youth and to address serious issues that we have going on in this country that need to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fiona, and thank you all of the drafting committee representatives for sharing your work on these articles, as well as sharing your insights on the importance of youth engagement and human rights advocacy and why we need this youth declaration. So now we can move on to the next slide, which is very exciting. So after hearing about the process of creating this declaration, I hope you're all feeling very inspired to join us now in signing it on and showing your support for youth leadership and human rights. So on the screen, you'll see the QR code and the bit.ly link. The link is also dropped in the chat. And so on the left-hand side of the screen, we have a short video showing you the process of what it's like to actually sign the declaration. So you'll be directed to the signing page on our website. And as you scroll down, there will be some background information kind of detailing, the origin of this declaration, the fact that we are commemorating 75 years of the UDHR. And then below, you'll be able to enter your name, your postcode, your city and your state, as well as some additional information. So please now, I invite all of you to take out your phones. You're welcome to open up a browser on your computer, follow the link that's directed in the chat, and please feel free to sign on and join us all in celebrating youth leadership and human rights for all people. So now we're actually going to pull up the signature page, and this is where we'll be housing all the information about this youth declaration, as well as collecting signatures from all of you, but also our larger UNA USA community. So on this page, we've included some additional information here. You'll see that we answer two important questions on this page: who can sign this declaration and how organizations can get more involved. Because this is a youth-led initiative, we are hoping to collect signatures from American youth under the age of 30. With that said, if you are a part of an organization that supports youth and works directly with youth, you're also welcome to sign this declaration in solidarity. So for example, at UNA USA, over 65% of our membership is actually under the age of 26. And that includes almost over 16,000 American youth, which is outstanding. So we ourselves are considered a movement that works with a really large youth contingency. So we ask that if you are signing the declaration on behalf of a youth-led organization, to please include your organization's name in the form as you're signing on to the declaration. So I'll give everyone a few moments now. As you can see, the numbers are slowly going up, but we really want to boost those numbers to reach our goal that's here on the left of 15,000. So as you're joining this call and you're advocating for human rights, we really hope that you can share this declaration across the US in order to help us gather as many youth signatures as possible. And as we can see here, the numbers continue to go up. And I want to reiterate that after this call, the movement doesn't stop here. We will continue gathering signatures, advocating for human rights, and really empowering young people to take action on human rights. So please continue sharing this out, signing, sharing it with your networks. All outreach and help is welcome. So in order to save time, I'd actually love to go back to the presentation and briefly talk about some next steps and what we're looking to do after this declaration. So as I mentioned, our goal is to collect 15,000 signatures by next September. In 2024, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has actually committed to engaging youth more directly in the UN. And this is largely being done through the Summit of the Future, which is taking place in September. So as we lead up to that major event, we're really hoping to collect this 15,000 signatures in order to showcase the power of American youth voices in human rights advocacy. Additionally, if your organization is interested in engaging further with the Youth Declaration, specifically as an organizational supporter, there's also an opportunity to donate $1,000 to these efforts, and you'll have your logo included on the signature page that we just showed, and as well as, you'll have other opportunities to be more engaged in this project. So if you're interested in more information about that, please go to the website that we've shared in the chat, and you can also reach out to me directly to speak further about that. So lastly, this declaration truly has the potential to serve as a guiding tool for key stakeholders who are looking to involve more youth in their global advocacy work. So we will present this declaration to the UN Youth Office and other UN entities, as well as the Office of Special Envoy for Global Youth Issues, Abby Finkenauer at the State Department. So we believe in empowering young people to play an active role in making this world a better place. And I could not be more proud to launch this declaration with all of you here today and really embody those values. So thank you all again for your support, and let's please keep this momentum going. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh gosh, that was so inspiring. I really appreciate all of your hard work that you guys you've been doing over the months. Moving forward, though, I am happy to introduce to you Nikki Patin, featured in The Guardian, Chicago Tribune, The Chicago Reader, on WBEZ, WTTW, Fox Soul, and on international television and radio. Nikki has been writing, performing, educating, and advocating for over 2 decades throughout the US, New Zealand, and Australia. In 2014, Nikki addressed the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, on behalf of Black women and girls surviving the sexual violence in the United States. Nikki is here today to perform a spoken word presentation. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Connor. I appreciate it. And big congrats to drafting the Youth Declaration for Human Rights. It's a huge, huge accomplishment. As somebody who has worked with young people for all of my career, I started off as a teaching artist at the tender age of 22 in high schools and elementary schools throughout Chicago. I've worked in, Cook County Temporary Juvenile Detention Center, and especially here in Chicago, young people have always been the drivers of change and progression. So I'm glad to see that trend is carrying on throughout the United States as well. So thank y'all so much. I wanted to present this first piece because obviously we're witnessing multiple genocides throughout the world right now. And like so many words that get used often, things like genocide and war tend to get watered down as we get away from like what those things actually mean. One of the things that for me equates with war is sexual violence. It's a tactic. It's a military tool, unfortunately. And so when I got the opportunity to address the UN in 2014, I did so within a group and as a representative of a group of a lot of Black women who traveled to Geneva to talk about this, to talk about the historic and the current impact of it. And I think the implications of this piece, while written with Black women and girls in mind, I do believe it has implications for all of us. Sexual violence is so pervasive that to me, it is one of the ways in which we absolutely gut folks' human rights. It's one of the quickest ways to completely decimate a community and to render them powerless, traumatized, and ultimately unable to act and advocate for themselves. So to me, the fight against sexual violence is a fight for human rights, is a fight for our human dignity, is a fight for people to be able to continue to fight for themselves and other people. So with all of that being said, I'm gonna hush up the rhetoric and get on with the art. This is a piece that I wrote called Take Back Our Lives. And this is in honor of victims and survivors everywhere. Everything read between lines of condemnation, world ordered through words tossed carelessly as creation. We are because you say we are, tricks of trade controlled by you. We protest, we're bitter. We smile, we're gold diggers. We laugh, you pull the trigger, we die, go figure. The whole time you just want us to take it, fake it, make it so we enjoy this rough insistence. Take it along with emotional distance, abusive brilliance. Take it because technically, if we don't say no, it's legal. Take it because if we're too drunk to know, it's not evil, just easy. Like these booties we should pop beasting. Better check these girls. Better treat them like the garden tools they are. Soon as they draw a line, better let them know who owns the dirt, who designs their skirts, who determines their worth. Before they can give it to you, better take it. It like inanimate object, it like something incapable of pain or death, it like a box rubber dream that can always bounce back, it like nothing like anything, but it is real. Flesh that peels, burns, hurts, bleeds, screams. We are real people who dream, walk, talk, move, think. So you can't just take it. You can't just take us. No matter how you rock that beat, trick that treat, move these streets, your words are taking everything. Your hands are snaking, uprooting oxygen, giving trees these parts of yourself you refuse to control. Trying to control me, trying to make true yours and kill our dreams. Your parts are no longer taking anything. For every seed that's ever sown grows into its own reckoning. For every wind that's ever blown becomes its own beckoning. For every date that begins with a laugh and turns into a fight, we need to take them, take back our lives. For every rock star ready to use the bodies of women to line his rocket right, we're ready to take it, take back our music. For every R. Kelly, P. Diddy, Rick Ross, Lil Wayne, convinced that what can't be gotten through love must be stolen through Molly and Emmett Till's light, we have to take them, take back our rhymes. For every grown man enthralled with flesh, too young, too fragile, too tender, too resisting, too young. For his hands, so he sneaks and plans, grooms with candy, threats, lies, and a deadly, disgusting dance. We demand and we take them, take back our homes. For every girl who looks like a boy, every boy who looks like a girl, enduring violence from someone trying to rape the gay, trans, bi, queer out of them, we must take them, take back our hearts. For every man, every boy pressured into sex because they're gay if they don't want it, gay if they report it, gay because men don't get raped, they just rape. So they stay silent. We have to take it, take back the day For every bit of bruised and broken flesh, for those of us who feel we have nothing left but flashbacks and missteps, for breaths that seem to grow too fast or not fast enough, for every unwanted touch, for survivors who did not survive, for those who did but still don't feel alive, for history's forgotten victims who had no law to call, no one to protect them, for those in every kind of skin who tried to scrub it off underwater, scalding, for each of our shoulders salted over with tears, for those of us who were never believed, those of us who were but full of grief, who watched their rapists walk free or handcuffed only to be out in 3, for all of us looking back on empty streets, wondering if we should have had that last drink, if we're too low cut or leg showing to be treated respectfully, then knowing that clothes we wear, drinks we drink, knives, pepper spray, guns, tough girl posturing don't mean anything to a predator's pathology, for our lives and liberties that are never included in any kind, including the American dream. We must take back our rights from corrupt judges and police. We need to take it from juries tainted by rape culture, TV, radio, movies, and magazines. We need to take it from our friends and families, teachers and preachers who say they love us, but still blame us. We need to take it from pimps and pedophiles, abusers, and so-called good guys. We need to take back our energy, take back our minds, take these dangerous flights to scout lands called freedom, stand up for the poor, black, brown, red, yellow, white, LGBTQAI, disabled, sex working survivors of the night, because without each and every one of us, this isn't a fair fight. Text, but never represented. We must demand safety, liberty, and consideration from our representatives, no matter how they try to resist it, because this is our country too. This is our world too. Every kind of rape is legitimate. Every victim worth testing. A rape kit, our flesh is not disposable. Our bodies are not collateral. No matter who tries to justify it, rape is not natural. Our outrage is actual. We will not give up the battle. The very bones of this nation will rattle with the cries of those of us who cannot take it anymore. So let's just take it. Take back our music. Take it. Take back our rhymes. Take it. Take back our homes. Take it. Take back our hearts. Take it. Take back our days. Take it. Take back our minds. Take it. Take back our energy. Take them. Take them. Take them. Take back our rights. Take them. Take them. Take back our lives. Thank you. That's the
You're
fun.
incredible.
Thank you, Connor.
Look at the tears in my eyes. You're incredible. That was brilliant.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, but it's on all of us, right? To do this and to do this for each other. And so I don't know if I have time for one more. Do I have time for one more? We do. Okay. So, this is like, I think like how we, fight for things, right? This is how we advocate for things. That part of it is the anger and the outrage, and all of that is justified, right? That's one side of it. That's what drives us. That's what opens our mouths. That's what keeps us going. But then you have the other side. And thank you guys so much for your comments in the chat. It's really wonderful and affirming. If I didn't mention it, I am also a survivor of both sexual and domestic violence. I'm also queer. I'm a single mom to a kiddo with autism who's 10, who loves both Barbies and Hot Wheels. And so I live this life where, we are very much living this life where I call us like, we're not the normies. We're the folks who are sort of like, living outside of the center, but living very beautifully. And so because of that, it's also really important to me that we affirm the beauty and the positivity. I like to say that words have spells, and they do. So I wanted to offer up this next piece. It's called Sistina for the Stars. So this is where I'm going to put on my literary hat. And so it'll be probably maybe a little like, I don't know what she's doing, but just hang with me for a second. I want to explain what Sistina is, and then you'll hear in the piece what I'm doing. But I wanted to share a piece with y'all that hopefully will lift you up and let you know how each and every one of you are stars in this fight, and that you should keep glowing and keep going and keep moving and keep shining. That it's beautiful to do that. It's hard and it's painful sometimes because stars are made of light, but it's so necessary. And so a Sistina is a poem with 6 stanzas of 6 lines and a final triplet. All stanzas have the same 6 words at the line ends in 6 different sequences that follow a fixed pattern, and all 6 of those words appear in the closing 3-line envoy. I like to call this a poetry puzzle. It's my fun stuff as a writer, and I want you to see if you can catch the 6 words that dominate this piece. This is called Sistina for the Stars, and I just want to leave you with this as a prayer and a litany for all of you to keep glowing, keep shining, keep moving, keep fighting. And this is inspired by Nikki Patin. Born perfect, brutally birthed ethereal, how else shall we describe the genesis of a star? Eyes, searing jewels reflecting every angle of the divine, I dare you to bottle my light. heavy with every kind of light, rippling, undulating across my bulging skin, perfect. My goddess body is not only divine, but flesh dripping down my bones, ethereal, as if my belly were stuffed with rare jewels. Embodying refraction, I mirror convex, no shade, all star. Can't keep your eyes off the bounce of this star, skittering across the cosmos, a flashlight, illuminating hidden jewels, studying the gorgeous landscape, perfect, smile rich and full, buttery and ethereal like that last creamy mouthful of ice cream, divine. The last little bit of heaven one can't get enough of, divine. I dare you to dissect a star, crack open trillions of years of ethereal. No, not too many can stand the intensity of this light. No, not many at all can keep company with this kind of perfect. Flaws abound in the promise of jewels. I never cared for jewels, always borrowing their glamour from the divine while pretending to be perfect. I know a rare gem still pales next to a true star, which can both shine and glare depending on the angle of the light. So, gorge yourself on my ethereal. Behold my generosity in gifting you the vision of my ethereal. Do use your tongue to savor my jewels. Bask in my shameless light. I am a channel of the divine, sauntering across the sky. I am a star, intentionally throwing off well-worn orbits while naming myself perfect. My light, ethereal, perfect big belly full of jewels, divine, refusing to be called anything except star. Please keep shining your lights, y'all. We love you. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. That was so special. I really appreciate the power in which you used your words. And I feel like your spoken word presentation allows us to not only hear about human rights, but to really feel the implications of human rights. So thank you. I wanted to now, in closing, say a special thank you to all of our incredible guests, to Ambassador Michèle Taylor, to Anna Patel, to Osei Arhigan, and the drafting committee for the UN-USA American Youth Declaration of Human Rights, and to Nikki Patin. As we close this first part of the program, let us take a moment of silence collectively in recognition of victims of human rights atrocities all around the world. So let's just take a moment right now to sit in that. Thank you for taking that moment of silence. But now it is time to raise your voice as a human rights defender. You have a chance to pledge to support human rights. You have a chance to pledge and to support human rights by telling Congress to prioritize U.S. contributions to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees in the Near East. That's the UNRWA. In the midst of this conflict in the Middle East, UNRWA is the lifeline for Palestinians, providing vital services, including education, healthcare, emergency assistance, and so much more. Again, as a reminder, the next part of the program will focus on actionable steps to support human rights. There are 4 breakout sections to choose from, and they will be facilitated by our fantastic partners, Global Citizen, UNICEF, Shot at Life, and the United to Beat Malaria, along with the UNA-USA Human Rights Affinity Group. So again, I thank everyone for being here today. I thank you for joining me and the UNA-USA to celebrate International Human Rights Day. And may we continue to successfully endure the journey to ensure human rights for all. Thank you, everyone.